As practitioners of Chinese martial arts, we often need to utilize various traditional weaponry within our training. In fact, weaponry is a large portion of traditional Chinese martial arts training. However, in today's environment, it's getting more and more difficult to find quality training weapons, swords, etc. The reason for this is that the majority of the swords available on the market today are catering more and more to competitive wushu. This problem is twofold. One, the competitive wushu movement directing the direction that sword makers follow and weapon makers follow in their production of Chinese martial arts weaponry. And due to that, they often follow the requirements that are often utilized in competitive wushu. And this is not just sport wushu, but also traditional martial artists, traditional Chinese martial artists who are competing in traditional Chinese martial arts competitions. Oftentimes, they try to put on a performance that is overtly flashy, overtly dramatic, overtly exciting. And to that end, they go for lighter weaponry, as well as weapons that are floppy and flimsy, which has become the norm now with Chinese martial arts weaponry that's available. The reason for that is it makes noise, it's easier to move around, it moves fast, etc. However, competition aside, as Chinese martial arts practitioners, we're often trying to find apparatus and weaponry that helps us in our development of our kung fu, in our skills, in following in line with the traditional development of these skills. To that end, I have made available custom premium quality traditional Chinese martial arts swords. Now, I personally use these swords, and that is one of the reasons why I made them available. I had these swords custom made for me quite a long time ago to my specifications that are in line with traditional requirements. These are training swords, yet they are rigid, firm, solid steel blades. They are not sharpened, but they are perfectly weighted and they have the correct feel for traditional Chinese martial arts practice. And this is across the board of styles. It doesn't matter whether you're doing southern styles, northern styles, what is considered internal styles or external styles. These swords will conform to what was classically regarded as a traditional sword. Now, I thought I'd show you a little bit more of these weapons. These are my personal training weapons that I've had in excess of 10 years. Now, that's one aspect of the quality of these swords that makes it worthwhile. They last. Floppy swords, these inferior quality swords, even though they might seem relatively inexpensive, they're still quite expensive in the grand scheme for what you're getting. They don't last long. Often they could break within a few weeks or even a few days of training, especially if you're doing a more vigorous training, etc. This sword is my own Dao, saber or broadsword that I had made over 10 years ago. And just by simply taking a little bit of care of it with daily training, it will last you a lifetime. As you can see, it comes in a scabbard, which is made of wood. It has a handle. The particular version that I've got here has got a wrap, a traditional Qing Dynasty wrap on the handle, which is available if you'd like to have that made on the sword as well. Or you can have a plain wooden handle. And then looking at the blade itself, it is a firm, rigid, traditional blade. Lengths available for this sword varied. There is a size chart on the website, but you can see that the quality of the metal used as well as the actual finish for the product itself is very, very good. This is a high quality item that will last you a long time, as I mentioned. Now, what are the advantages of using a premium or a traditional solid steel sword? Well, first of all, they have the feel and the weight of an actual sword that was used for Chinese martial arts and martial arts in general, historically. What that does is it gives you, first of all, the rigidity of knowing what a real sword feels like as you're performing your techniques, but also the weight. Now, the weight distribution for a classical sword is rather blade heavy. That is how swords used to be. They weren't often perfectly weighted and distributed simply by the fact that the materials being used are solid steel. Now that, as you're practicing your techniques, etc., will give you a real feel for what it feels like to train with a real sword as you go through the motions. The center of mass for the weapon, as you extend your arm or have the blade closer to your body, as you extend the blade, etc., differs. And this trains your body to have a different type of body mechanic that is related to those particular techniques. So you're developing the correct requisite body skills and body mechanics with these swords and the correct weight. The rigidity gives you a real feedback, a feedback that you will not get from a floppy sword. Floppy swords might make noise, they might dissipate when you're issuing force, and in some senses a little bit of feedback from that might help you with certain aspects, but it's not necessary. The feedback you get from a rigid sword, where you're feeling if you're issuing a force is reaching to the tip of the weapon and going out, as opposed to just making the weapon bend or flop in different directions, you will understand this more clearly as well. So training with a traditional sword actually helps you to develop the requisite body mechanics and skills for the weapon use. But as Chinese martial arts and our body mechanics for bare hand are largely derived from weapons, it will help you to develop the correct mechanics, but also the correct strength, structure, and alignment, as well as issuing and timing for your bare hand techniques. So that is one of the values of training with a traditional sword. Now I'm showing you here the saber, or the broadsword, or the straight sword is exactly the same. It comes with a wooden scabbard. It has brass fittings as opposed to this metal that is used here. And it's also got the correct weight and feel, available with a traditional hand wrap or a traditional handle wrap on the handle, or a plain wood handle. That is up to you. Now these are beneficial even down to people that don't do fast styles, like let's say if you're doing a traditional yang style sword practice. The weight and the control of having a solid blade that is with weight on it as you do those techniques is going to help you to develop all the supporting muscles as well. So all in all, using traditional swords is far more effective to developing the requisite skills for traditional Chinese martial art practice that can then convert to actual using real swords, if that is your thing. There's not like a gap between the training sword and a real sword in terms of weight and mechanics that you develop and now suddenly become alien when you're using a real sword. So that is another value and benefit. Even though you might not be intending to ever wield a real sword, you have developed the requisite mechanics and skills therefore. Now the swords that I offer are custom made per order to your size, etc., and your requirements, and then they are made one by one and sent out by us to you wherever you may be. If you're looking to order from countries that are not available, currently the shipping is available to the USA directly through my website upon order. However, if you want to order to other countries, simply contact us directly and we can facilitate this. Now once again, as I mentioned earlier, one of the keys about these swords is that they last you a lifetime. If you take care of them while you're training with them and use them even vigorously, they're going to last you a long time. Meaning you buy one training sword and it's basically your training sword for very many years through your training without having to continuously buy swords, which is one of the benefits again compared to the mass-produced floppy steel swords that are available currently. Alright, if you're looking to get one of these swords, they're available from my website directly, mushinmartialculture.com. We also have traditional bagua length weapons, which are the larger broadsword and the larger straight sword available, as well as traditional spearheads as well. All of these traditional weapons with the correct weighting and the correct rigidity is only going to be beneficial for your training.